The actor Hugh Grant says he believes he was the victim of phone hacking by the newspaper, and he joins me now from Westminster. Hugh, thanks very much for being with us. Just tell me first of all what your initial reaction was to these fresh allegations that victims of crime had their phones hacked.
Well, obviously revulsion, but not surprise, because I'd heard those rumours before. It was more than a rumour, in fact, because I'd interviewed an ex-features editor from the News of the World a few months ago. When I say interviewed, I had a long conversation with him and secretly taped him, seeing as I knew he'd already hacked my phone. And one of the things he admitted to was that the News of the World had hacked the phones of the family and friends of the little girls who were murdered at Soham. So although when the piece in The Guardian came out about Molly Dowler the other day, Millie Dowler, I wasn't surprised, but doesn't mean to say I was any less revolted.
And Hugh, a public inquiry is what's being discussed at the moment, an independent public inquiry. Do you think that's going to be enough, or do we need to see a complete overhaul of how the British press manages itself?
Well, the hope is that this will be a proper, full public inquiry and not some means of the government sort of shifting it off into the long grass. It needs to be the full McCoy, and there needs to be a massive overhaul of the way the tabloid press. I have no problem, no one has any problem with the broadsheet press or the BBC, for instance, in this country, but the tabloid press has gone unregulated and has lived above the law 10 or 15 years in this country, and a lot of people have been harmed, a lot of privacy has been stolen for profit, and a lot of really despicable acts like what we've heard about in the last few days have taken place. So what we need is a proper regulator here. You know, our broadcast media has a thing called Ofcom, which is pretty tough. Advertising has a strong regulatory body here, but for some reason the tabloid press is allowed to do what the devil it likes.
We've heard now from News Corporation Chairman Rupert Murdoch, who says that he is, quote, thinks that the allegations are deplorable and unacceptable, and that Rebekah Brooks will stay in her position. Does that surprise you?
It's hilarious that he's keeping Rebekah Brooks in her position. I think he will regret that, because my understanding, especially talking to lawyers very close to this case, is that it won't be very long before she's arrested. And I don't think that's going to look good for Rupert Murdoch.
And I believe also, Hugh, that you have been called as a witness by the police.
Yes, I have. In the new police criminal investigation into all this. The old one was a disgrace and a whitewash, because the officers concerned were not entirely, well, they were basically in the pockets of News International. But the new one, they seem much tougher, and they have been to see me. They want me to be a witness, because they've showed me evidence of how I was hacked, and I'm very happy to help them. But I don't think a police investigation is enough. It needs to be this full public inquiry.
Hugh, do you think now that the public will have different sympathies with those being pursued by the tabloid press than perhaps they did before?
Well, certainly at the moment they do, I think. I think the whole country is in a state of disgust at what's going on, and I just hope that people maintain that feeling. You know, I'm sure that the circulation of the News of the World will dip dramatically on Sunday, and I just am terrified that it'll start picking up again after that. You know, when Princess Diana was effectively murdered by the tabloid press through their freelance paparazzi, they all said, "Oh, we'll never use these freelance paps again," and then within a few months they were. So the great key here is to keep the momentum up.
And Hugh, just finally, there is an argument being put across that this behaviour was in some way historical, and that tabloid press doesn't behave in that way anymore. It isn't hacking people's phones. Do you believe that?
No, I don't at all believe that. It's harder for them now, because people with mobile phones have got wiser to how to preserve their PIN numbers and keep them safe, and the various phone companies have special divisions in them which are sort of safer than, which don't allow tabloid newspapers to bribe operatives at the phone company to get people's PIN numbers. So it's harder for them, but I'm quite sure they're still at it, and they're certainly still bribing people for medical records and things like that. It wasn't long ago that I ended up in hospital in the middle of the night, and all the details were in the Sun and the Daily Express pretty much the next day.
Hugh Grant there, live for us in central London. Thanks very much for joining us with your thoughts.
Okay.